Valentino here with Eli from Boys of Fall. How you doing today, Eli?
So good, man. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. So, your new album, Distance, coming out very soon, November 20th. How are you feeling?
Oh, feeling great. Really excited. I think this album came together really well in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more excited, more proud. I think this is the best work that our band has done in our career. So I'm really excited to get it out there and have the fans hear it, and hopefully bring in new people to the project that's never heard of us before.
Definitely, definitely. And I know that with this album, it sounds like the darkest you guys have ever been, like lyrically, emotionally. It almost sounds like a new reinvention of the band.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't disagree with that. That was on purpose, actually. I mean, I don't think that we came to the creative process saying I'm depressed. Let's write, let's be more depressed. But early in the writing process, this our singer Mike and I kind of had a discussion, quite a few discussions. I don't think it was just one, but towards the tail end of our last album cycle, we said, you know what, I'm not quite happy with the direction we took. On this last album cycle, there were some songs on our debut album, Thank You and Goodbye, that were a lot more emotional in general, that were really personal. In fact, I would argue all of those songs are extremely personal. And that is, we re-identified what our strengths are and what they were. And so we went back to that. I think musically, over Better Moments album cycle, we learned some things and applied new things to an old sound. And then we kind of came full circle on that with Distance. And to answer, about, I think a lot of us were in really dark places with our personal lives. And so, yeah, we just applied that to the entire creative process, Distance is what it is because of that.
I love it. And especially when you're writing a second album, you're so concerned about the sophomore slump. It's such an infamous thing. Whereas
Yeah.
on your third album, you can be a little bit more freedom. You don't have to be concerned as much. There's less pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in our situation was pretty unique. If you're familiar, we took after we released Thank You and Goodbye. It's titled Thank You and Goodbye because we were calling it quits, and so we took a year and a half off, and so it was this. We're all living our lives pretty separately. I was really detached from the guys in the band because I took the breakup pretty hard, so to speak, and um, we started just kind of messing around with writing music again and stuff. And then it just overnight, it just felt like it all really picked up. We had a discussion that summer to maybe get the band back together. And then next thing you knew, by that fall, we were releasing music and signed to In Vogue Records and planning tours. And it was just all of a sudden overnight, our lives just completely changed. So having said all that, Better Moments is a reflection of it's a stark contrast to what we had done prior, because our lives had completely changed and we had to figure out a way, not only who are we as Boys of Fall, but we also had new members too, that we had to cater to their strengths. Not that they drug us down by any means. We were just trying to identify what those strengths are, apply them to ours. And Better Moments is not a bad record by any means. I just think that when you look at Thank You and Goodbye, the difference is all of Thank You and Goodbye was written single by single by single by single, because that's a compilation of music we sat on for like two or 3 years. So each song was written to be almost like a single. We spent that much time with each individual song. And then Better Moments, we had to, in 6 weeks, write an album. We had never done that before. And so with Distance, we wanted to say, okay, we obviously aren't going to have 2 years or whatever to write this album, but let's take our time with it. First of all, let's get back in the driver's seat. Let's self-produce this, because actually all of our top streaming music is self-produced, and that's something that we're pretty proud of. Secondly, pitch that idea to the label, and thankfully In Vogue was completely behind that idea. No questions asked. They're just like, if that's what you guys want to do, then cool. So yeah, be self-produced and then just take everything that we learned and apply it to this. And we took our time with it, and the pandemic played a little bit of a role with taking our time with it. But but time was our best friend on this.
Yeah. And like the saying is true. You have your whole life to write your first record. But then once you get like success, you got such a short amount of time. And as you said, 6 weeks to kind of cram that in. Whereas in this record, you've done it before, you're a little bit more experienced and you know how to handle it and how to go about that.
Yeah. I think too, I think we're a lot more self-aware. I think that comes with age too, kind
Yeah.
of getting older. We've been around the country a few times, been in touch with our fans enough to where um, we understand what they're looking for and what they want. And we actually want the same thing. We want to write the best music we can write too. And um, so, yeah, I don't think that we said screw better moments. Let's be completely different. It's just like, hold on, let's reflect for a minute and let's find out let's identify the things that we did really well and the things that we haven't done well, and apply it to the next album cycle. And I think that Distance is definitely a reflection of that.
Mm. And do you think that in the long term, now that you're 2 albums away from that break that you guys took, that breakup, was that breakup beneficial to your headspaces, or do you think it was more detrimental?
Yeah, it was beneficial. I would say. I mean, because our singer Mike and I had we did a podcast with the Vial Company, which is an apparel company out of Detroit that we're really good friends with. And when we were coming up in the local scene, it was at that time, maybe like. Well, the band started in 2011, but we didn't really start getting a lot of traction until about 2013, 2014, and then into 2016 is when Thank You and Goodbye came out. So that whole time frame, I mean, we were younger, we were younger, and there was a lot of like, okay, this band out of Detroit just made it, this next one just made it, we're next, we're really talented. I mean, we worked really, really hard. That's something that we can't take away from ourselves. We worked really hard. um, but I do think that there was this toxic attitude of entitlement within our band, but that comes with youth. And I think that the biggest difference between, this chapter of our band and that one is with age comes self-awareness and comes maturity. And that entitlement is just, that's gone, because that's why we broke up. If, we all have our personal reasons, but that attitude, that idea that we were next and we weren't getting what we deserved, even though we worked really hard, we put limitations on ourselves, we put a time frame on ourselves, and that was so foolish. And we're very fortunate to have a second chance, that we have fans. And that was the other thing, we've got fans all over the country that didn't exist before, because we released that album and then broke up. And if it weren't for Spotify and YouTube, I mean, we wouldn't be a band today. The fact that it did so well on the internet while we weren't a band, it's insane, it's crazy. And now we can reap the benefits of that and go out on a tour, and at any given place we're actually playing for fans. Like, that's really cool, dude, because before that, it was like just being in a town that nobody had ever heard of us before, and you're maybe playing for 2 people. And obviously there's nights like that even still today, even for really, really big bands. You've got your off nights and your markets that need to be developed and stuff. But the fact that I can even sit here today, have a conversation with you about this upcoming record, is a testament to the fans that we had, and that we have today, thankfully, and thankfully for this second chance. So yeah, it was a lot of self-growth and maturity. And I'm actually, I've said it to the guys too, and maybe they would agree, maybe they wouldn't, but I think that hiatus was the best thing to ever happen to us in some degree. So.
Mm. And personally, from me, my opinion standpoint, I think the new songs that you guys have debuted, the new singles from Distance, are the best the band has ever been. I think you guys are really firing on all cylinders. And it makes sense what you're saying, how like that youth mindset, you could shed that once you kind of separated yourself. Like once your identity wasn't just with the band, you had identity about, who you are as a person, you could go into the band with a different perspective.
Oh, dude, yeah, and thank you. I really appreciate that. I mean, I personally think the same thing. I do think that these songs are the best that we've ever done. We were hypercritical of each other, and really respectful of each other in this writing, in these writing sessions. and yeah, that all comes with maturity and understanding each other. This is the most healthy creative outlet that I have in my life personally, so I give it my all, and the guys do too. You know, I feel really fortunate. There are many nights on tour where you know, you get done wrapping up the show and you're driving to the next, you know, to your hotel or wherever we're going to stay that night, and you just kind of think for a minute. It's like, dude, it's a Wednesday night and we just almost sold out this little place in Columbus, and wow, I'm really lucky, you know, or I don't know if I can swear, sorry, but
All good.
really really lucky to be doing this. And so yeah, I mean, I think you just apply all those experiences, the good and the bad, into just a cocktail of maturity and self-awareness, and here we are with distance. And yeah, I don't think this band has been any better. Also, bringing our old drummer Bean back into the fold has been really important. And it's no disrespect to any of the drummers that we had prior, because they both did excellent jobs with us, and we appreciate the time that they gave us. But there's something about Bean. He brings just a level of, because he was there when we were first coming up, and this project is very personal to him too. And you know, they're not just drums. Like he applies such a heavy and heavy-handed but artistic flavor to our music on the drum set. That so yeah, having him back, and it was just a weird perfect alignment of the stars for this album cycle. So I'm excited about it to kick it off.
Especially on like that title track Distance, where like, you know, right when it hits the chorus and all the instruments come pounding in at once, you hear all the instruments are really emotional, but those drums especially understand
Oh
what they're
yeah.
saying.
Yeah, he did such a good job. You know, so I love that. That is my favorite song we've ever done, for a lot of reasons. I mean, I think that like from the lyrics, they're so poetic. The vocal style shows off Jake and Mike's versatility and their strengths. You're so right. The way the instrument spilled, it's such a musical song. You know, I'm really stoked that like, and we were just talking about it, working on our documentary we've been working on, is like, we've bounced out all the music just without vocals for like background music during interviews and stuff. And I'm just so impressed with my bandmates, like all the musicianship, that each individual instrument tells its own story, and then you just layer them all together, and collectively they're you know, they move in and out of each other, and they align really well together, and we're very cognizant of each other's strengths. And so I'm just so excited and proud about that. But yeah, back to Distance. I mean, I will say, like, that song in particular, that opening part, I was so I had gotten the flu, and I didn't make it to the initial writing session for that, and I got the demo sent to my email after they were finished, and I immediately texted Mike, because the only thing that was written was the very beginning up to that building part, up to the scream.
Yeah.
So that was all that was written, and I was like, and no vocals were on it yet either. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Like, just to have raw drums and raw guitars on it, but just hearing it for the first time, I knew exactly in my heart, I just knew that song was special. And there's been so many demos like that over the years, that I get that feeling about. And that song was another one of those. And so I definitely on the next writing session, when we finished that song, I definitely had a lot to do with writing the second half of that, which I'm proud of, because I love that song, and I'm very proud to stamp my name on it too. So, but yeah, my bandmates are awesome. Everyone brought their A game, and we all collectively had a goal, and I think we achieved it.
Yeah, and like I love the way you said that, but I definitely want to backtrack to something you just said earlier.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about this album documentary, aka the visual album experience.
Yeah.
Now that is so cool. A lot of bands have been doing like live stream sort of stuff, live stream shows, whether they perform and they live stream, or they record a show that they've done a year ago and they live stream that. But to live stream like a documentary about how the album was made, that I've never heard that before, and I think that is the most unique thing. What went about that decision?
I have to give credit to our manager on this, our manager Mark Woodbridge, for
Mhm.
his company's 921 Collective. I don't think we give him enough shout outs. He's a part of our family, and like the second chapter of our band wouldn't be what it is without him. He works so hard for us, and he's very creative himself, and he's a hustler. That's one of my favorite things about him, is he's always thinking outside the box to progress our band, and not only our band but the other bands that he manages. And so yeah, this was his idea first and foremost. He pitched the idea to us and the label, and said, listen, like, this is not going to be easy. Mike, our singer, he's incredibly talented, and he not only recorded and produced our album, he's recording and filming and producing this documentary, this visual experience. So yeah, the idea came about was like, Mark said to us on a conference call, like, hey, I've got this crazy idea, because I don't want you guys to put out this album, which is your best work yet, and it only have like a first week, and then because of the pandemic, you guys can't tour. And the touring is what really brings a lot of awareness to the album. It's just like this explosion of awareness. It's an awareness campaign, is what a tour is, essentially. And so he said, what if we, with bands doing live stream concerts and stuff, what if we think outside the box but apply that same idea to it? And he said, like, film playthroughs, and like film you guys, show you guys playing the songs like you would like at a live show, make it really, really high quality video. And then if you want to throw interviews and stuff, I think the interviews and the documentary was kind of our idea, and which he really, really liked. And whenever you have a good idea and you inspire the people around you, it's just like, and I feel like all of our really good ideas are like this. It's like, okay, the baseline is the first idea that gets pitched, and then somebody's just like, oh yeah, they get excited about it, and then they throw their idea on top of it, and then everybody's like, yeah, okay, well, what if we do that? That's what this was. So yeah, that's how it came about, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be really unique for the fans. We wanted to put our personalities and tell the story of the album, and we've gotten a lot of interaction from the fans, like really asking questions, specific questions, like, I really want to know what was behind this, because it is so different, from Better Moments. It's a welcome surprise, but not really maybe what we were quite expecting. And so what brought about the change? And so we go over that, and it's really, really well done so far. Anytime Mike sends out clips to us to check it out, I'm always really stoked. He's doing an excellent job and working very hard. And so, yeah, that's really the idea and how it came about.
And another cool thing about that is that it's not like, obviously when bands perform live, they can have like a persona, and like, that's super fun to see live, but
Yeah.
that might not be who they are genuinely as people. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're doing a documentary like this with interviews, it's just 100% you.
Mhm.
It's just you guys being the most you can be.
Yeah.
Oh, I like this song, like, just kind of noodling around on the bass, or like stuff like that. Like that's you, and the fans really get to kind of peek behind that curtain.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and it's definitely something. You know, Mike and I, we're, first of all, we're best friends. He's like a brother to me. So, and the fact that we get to experience our band together over almost a decade now is really. And the older you get, the more nostalgic you get, and we feel equally passionate about this project. And him and I were hanging out, I think 2 weeks ago, just in his living room, drinking some and watching the old music videos and thinking, wow, we've really come a long way. And you're right, like, this is something we're taking a lot of special care with, because we want to document everything, how we were feeling in this moment, because maybe 10 years from now, who knows where we're going to be. And if this is kind of like the a step forward in our career, we want to be able to remember it. So we're taking a lot of care with it to tell our story. And I think something too, we've always done a really like, we're really, really goofy. We're idiots when we all hang out together, and we're always projecting that out to the fans. I think anytime we get a chance to interact with fans, they always tell us like how funny we are and how fun we are to hang out with, but it's funny because we we put that out a lot, but we don't put a lot of our music is pretty serious. It's pretty dark, especially on this album. And it's kind of funny. I was telling Mike about it. We were having a conversation. I was like, it is. I think that this documentary will be really good to be like, okay, this is where the seriousness of our music comes from. Like we're not all idiots all the time. We do have a mature side to us, and so yeah, I think like you said, we want the fans to see exactly who we are too. So yeah, that is the goal.
That's awesome. That is so incredible. And again, I think it's such an important blend, especially in music, because you don't, you want you guys to have fun and be lighthearted, but you also want to have like actual emotion.
Yeah.
And that line is such a fine line to walk. And I think you guys do it very, very well. Um, Another thing that I definitely wanted to ask you about, and this is going to be way backtracking, but I'm
Yeah.
very, very curious.
Yeah.
Um, I've never talked to any artist from the Detroit kind of scene, the local scene. So now
Yeah.
that you guys have obviously moved past the local scene and now you are, a bigger band, looking back, kind of more reflective, I'm very, very curious to know about how that local post-hardcore pop punk scene was, how it was in that environment, all that stuff.
Oh, dude, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you said that. I could, man, where do I start? So first of all, I'm going to put a personal sense to it, to answer the question. So I am from Southeast Michigan, down by Ohio. I live in a small town, and my lifelong dream, I've been playing music since I was 5 years old. My dad's a musician, and I grew up watching Van Halen, live concerts and stuff on VHS tape, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. And but it always felt like unattainable to me, being from a small town. I didn't know anybody who did anything other than cover bands, and but I don't know why I just locked myself in my room for hours at a time, and just tried to be the best bass player and musician I could be. And I just told myself, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know even where to start, because it's not like anything else you do in life. Like you graduate high school, you go to college, you go get a job. This is different. Where do you even start? What does it take to do an album or meet a band? How am I going to meet a band? Like who's going to be my bandmates? It takes so much creativity, and they've got to be really good and all that. So I told myself at a young age I was going to pursue it, and then the opportunity came, and I realized pretty quickly that if I wanted to do music, I needed to go up to Detroit, because that's where the music scene was. So I for a lot of our career, or a lot of those early years, I was driving an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours to Detroit every weekend for 2 gigs a
Wow.
weekend, or practice in the middle of the week, and twice a week, selling tickets up in Detroit, because local bands have to sell tickets to their shows. So I was always on the road, just spending ridiculous amounts of money on gas and equipment, and the band. And anyways, to arch it into the Detroit local scene, I think we've benefited. We would not be the band that we are today if it weren't for the local Detroit scene, because at the time we were coming up, We Came as Romans was blowing up. Icy Stars was really popular. Sleeping with Sirens is from Grand Rapids. But Sycamore is a band that we came up with that always was the band we were looking towards. And there was a band when we were coming up, Dismember the Fallen, that was pretty popular. Alive and Standby was pretty popular, and now they're the True Blue. Um, really good friends of mine, Narco Debut, Gold Root. I mean, the list is so long, and I'm missing so many people, and that's no disrespect, but the scene there is one of the best in the country, and we've got a chance to get out and see a lot of local bands around the country. But um, the level of self-criticism and self-reflection within that scene, the hardcore scene was really alive and well at the time. I mean, our local shows, there was a lot of promoters that were just, it wasn't anything to have 600 people at a local show. Just no questions asked. I mean, that's normal, but you got to work for it. And when you get on stage, you got to prove that you're legit. And so we really busted our tails to be as excellent on stage as we could be, as friendly as we could be, have as good of merch as we could have. write the best music we could write. um that was all because, iron sharpens iron is kind of a thing. I mean, if you come up in a local scene and it's just like, that band's excellent, that band's excellent, oh man, we got to come in after that band, oh crap, okay, well, here we go. And the other thing is too, is like, a lot of your local slots at the time were like, whoever sold the most tickets, like that's how it goes. And so we wanted to strategically sell as many tickets as we could, so that we got the best time slot, so that we can make, play for the most people and get new fans. So I mean, that was always a strategy of ours too. It's just it was friendly competition. I don't think a lot of artists like to look at it that way, and I understandably so. But when you're in a local scene like that, where you got to fight and claw for every little bit of attention and all that, and then excellent musicians bring out the best in other musicians too, other great bands and stuff. I can't speak highly enough and of the Detroit local scene. I'm extremely lucky and so humbled and proud to have been and be a part of it, because like I said, I'm not even from Detroit, and they accepted me. I made so many friends still to this day that accepted me with open arms and respected me as a musician and our band and what we've done and accomplished. And so, yeah, I mean, I would argue this could be a hometown bias, but I think it's the best in the country. And I think the proof's kind of in the pudding on that too. I mean, just look at the bands that have come from Detroit. The list is very long, that have had relative success. And so, yeah, I think it's the best in the country.
And I think, especially from like my own personal experiences, I think the DC local scene and the Detroit local scene are the places where actual fans will go and try to discover bands through that way.
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm actually originally from Rhode Island, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
love Rhode Island. It's a beautiful state. I've got nothing but incredible things to say about it. But in terms of the local scene, almost all the local bands there have either moved to Boston or Hartford, just
Yeah.
because you can do as much as you can. But if fans aren't willing to go check out local music, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's super comforting to hear you say that. Like, if you worked hard in a local scene, you could get 600 people just watching your show.
Dude, well, and so I'm so glad you said that too, because that was my mindset growing up in a small town. First of all, it starts with culture, right? There has to be a live music scene culture involved. Otherwise, because if there aren't fans to go to shows, if there aren't butts in seats, you're not playing for nobody. Nobody's going to know who you are, even with the advent of the internet. Yeah. Like you can check bands out on Spotify and stuff. But at least at that time, it was like, you play shows, because that's where all the people are. And man, like, I mean, there's so many, there were, at least at the time, pre-pandemic, so many excellent local, music venues, live music venues, in the suburbs of Detroit, north of Detroit, Detroit proper, the rough neighborhoods, the affluent neighborhoods, everywhere. And all of the same people went to all of the same shows. The scene traveled, all around suburban Detroit, inside of Detroit. And so I didn't grow up with that. I was never around that. And so like to be enthralled in that, I'm lucky to come up in a music scene like that, because that doesn't exist everywhere. And back to your point, like, cause it all gets shifted into larger cities and stuff. And so I don't know why it is the way it is, but people love seeing live music in Detroit, Michigan. And that's really, really cool. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for just having that culture, like there's a culture of it here. And it's just not in my local town, which is sad, because like I really wish that, I always said if I could make it or something, or have like a lot of influence, I really would like to cultivate that type of scene, because how many other Eli's in my local, area are getting lost through the cracks that gave up music because it wasn't attainable to them. Like, I had a really weird mindset when I was a kid. It was just like, that is what I'm going to do no matter what. Like, I was obsessed with it. And what if somebody discourages, somebody like I was, and says, you can't do that. That doesn't exist. That's only in the big cities. What, how many artists are we losing in our local areas that where that culture doesn't exist, that people don't appreciate and respect live music. So I think to the broader point, I think that that needs to be cultivated, you know, and I hope maybe someday I could help with that, but I would like to see it cultivated. And back to the original point, I'm very lucky to
Yeah.
have discovered Detroit, and Detroit welcomed me in our band.
And again, right now, obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic with COVID-19, but we're hoping that maybe after the pandemic, either the live scene will completely flourish because people will be so starved to go to shows that they'll go to as many local shows as well as big shows, or it could be the opposite where the venues aren't, they can't
Yeah.
sustain themselves. So it really could go either way. And one of the things you said, especially about like you can discover a local band online through streaming services, but at the end of the day, you're not going to have an emotional connection to it unless you see it live, unless like the science behind the acoustics of seeing like actual instrumentation live and hearing it like echo in your brain. You have a connection to that versus just on Spotify. It's a different vibe, and I think that's why the culture is probably so strong there.
Yeah, man. I think that I'm thankful that although the internet has replaced like a lot of things within music, like for better or for worse, like because people aren't spending $10 on a CD or a cassette tape or an LP, like, and you pay a subscription fee and then you get access to whatever music you want whenever you want. It kind of, in some respects, I mean, it does dilute the value of the music. And that could be argued, and Spotify has done excellent things for our band, but in some regards, the internet has changed so much of music, and I'm so glad that live music still remains kind of untouched. That because of what you just said, there's some kind of spiritual connection of, I don't know if, like, for me, because I'm a bass player. And my dad was a drummer growing up, there was something I would beg him to let me go to his band practices because I wanted to feel it. Like he always made me wear like these soundproof headphones, but I could feel his drums when they hit him. I could feel it in my chest, and and then his bass player, like there's that low resonance, just vibrating through, resonating through the room. Like, you're right, you feel it. Like you could, like, music, like frequencies at a high volume literally can move things, and you feel that on your skin and in your bones, and you're so right. There really is something extremely special and I would argue even spiritual about live music. And I'm thankful that, like I said, with the internet, that hasn't changed. Time will tell with the pandemic, but I do think that once it's safe to do things and people regain that trust of safety, that it will come back. It'll take time because there will be, unfortunately, a lot of venues that have closed and may or may not reopen. But we will find ways, back to what I was saying, like in Detroit, like one of the craziest places that bands could play was there's this skate park, this indoor skate park that, and I think it was because it was cheap for promoters to rent. Like there's no house PA, the acoustics in there suck, but man, people would pack that place out. Hundreds of kids would show up to go to horrible sounding local shows because their favorite bands were playing there. It's, as long as you got power, like, I've seen shows in pole barns. Like, I mean, that's how I started gigging, as a kid, was playing in pole barns. You're right, man. Like people relate to it. It affects them in the best way. And I am optimistic about where live music will be after the dust is settled with this. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the fans will carry it because all the music fans I've talked to, I mean, like the actual concert live streams are nice. They're kind of a substitute right now, but the thing is that there's this beautiful exchange of energy, and I've talked about this with other artists from across all different genres, is that when you're seeing a show live, the artist feeds off of the crowd's energy and they put on a good show, and then the crowd will feed off the artist's energy and they'll get more hyped, and it's this big circle of energy that's just like goes round and round and round. Whereas with a live stream show, an artist is playing to a camera, like the little green or the little red light might pop on and that's it, and the fans will just sit on the couch and maybe chill for a bit, but like it's not there's no exchange, there's nothing there.
that energy, like I've had people who have known me like my whole life who, um, like they'll say like you're a different person when you're on stage, and I'm like, I am, dude, because there's a switch that flips inside of you when you're an artist, and you're so right, when you feed off of that energy, it's palpable, you can feel it as the artist, you know, like you feel it coming from the crowd, and I know that the crowd feels it. But there's nothing in the world that is like being hundreds of miles away from home, and some kids that waited in line to get into your show, and they're sweating, and we're all miserable because it's so hot and stuff, but they are just screaming every single word of your songs, like they know them by heart, and they mean a lot, and they're wearing your t-shirt. And there's, yeah, you're right, man, there's nothing like it. I will probably do it until I can't do it anymore, because it's the greatest drug on earth. Like there's just nothing like it. It's really something special, you know.
I love it. I love it. Well, again, thank you so much for talking to me today about the new album, the local Detroit scene, the
Yeah.
state of music as a whole. This was a really awesome conversation. I'm so excited for the new album. As I've said before, we here at WSU Under the Stars are beyond pumped for this. We think it's the best work you guys have ever done so far. So we're so excited to see what's in store.
That means a lot. Thanks so much for having me. I likewise, this was a great conversation. I hope I didn't ramble too much. Sometimes I got that tendency to do that, but
I love it. No, it's
cool.
perfect.
Well, yeah. So yeah, if anybody out there, check out our band, boysofallband.com. You can get your tickets to our visual experience for the album. The album comes out on November 20th. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's all at Boys of Fall Band.